Laura Ellsworth. Monique serves as the Chief Executive Officer of Second Harvest of the Big Bend, where she leads strategic efforts to alleviate hunger and strengthen food security across 16 counties in North Florida. A dedicated advocate for social equity, Monique has been an active leader in Tallahassee's social services community since 2011, focusing her career on addressing the root causes and consequences of poverty. Before joining Second Harvest in 2019, she served as Executive Director of CESC, Inc., the nonprofit organization best known for operating the Kearney Center, a comprehensive service hub for individuals experiencing housing insecurity. Monique earned her Master of Social Work from FSU in 2012 and continues to invest in the next generation of social workers as an instructor in FSU's College of Social Work. Please join me in welcoming Monique.
Thank you all so much. I wonder if this is unattachable. Okay, great. Hi, this is so exciting. First, I just want to thank you all, one for the church for hosting this and dreaming up something to introduce our community to. What a really impressive lineup that y'all have also, like the number of presenters that you have, the folks from our community that are coming. You're in for a real treat. I get to work with a number of the people on that list, and I hope that you are dazzled and moved, and a fire grows in your belly and you want to do something to help kind of alleviate some of the hurting that happens in our community. I'll build a little bit on something that you had mentioned about just the need here locally. Just before I started at Second Harvest, so 2019, County Commissioner Bill Proctor did something with the 32304 zip code and did a prosperity for that particular zip code and a lot of work to bring attention to issues that were happening there. Something that was interesting that he chose to do is he coordinated with a group of us to put people on a school bus and drive around essentially the Frenchtown and Griffin Heights neighborhood. And there were presentations while people were captured on a bus, couldn't get off. And so we could tell people what was going on. And Antoine Wright, who is the CEO of Habitat for Humanity, was on the bus. And he shared that year and the year before, there was a combination of 4 projects that he oversaw in the Frenchtown neighborhood, and it was putting in plumbing. The homes did not have toilets and showers inside of them. Those opportunities were still in the yard in a different structure. He also shared that the average annual income of that neighborhood, Frenchtown specifically, was $12,000 a year. And there's children that live there. And so anyways, I was really moved listening to kind of that information, and now continuing to kind of work in this space. I feel what I hope that you all will feel, and probably many of you already do feel, but energized to serve. So without further ado, I'll jump into my presentation, but I just wanted to say thank you all so much for being here tonight, for giving of your evening, for caring about this work. I will walk. I have bad jokes that I will tell probably. And should you have any questions, please raise your hand. I'm here for you, not to just talk at you. So let me know what your questions are. First one is, does she know what she's doing? Oh boy. It was working.
It was working.
Advance the slide, please. I think even if you just hit the space bar, it probably goes forward.
It froze up on us.
All right, so I'll work on my stand-up routine with y'all. Okay, well, I'll just begin talking a little bit. So, raise your hand if you're familiar with Second Harvest of the Big Bend, meaning you've been out there, volunteered. I'm talking to friends. Okay, great, this is wonderful. So, let me introduce you visually to our service area. We have 16 counties that Second Harvest of the Big Bend is contractually responsible for serving, meaning that Feeding America, raise your hand if you're familiar with Feeding America, probably same hands. Okay, some of the hands not going up. Feeding America is the national nonprofit that kind of takes on now we have no PowerPoint. Things are really dissolving. America is the national organization that invites larger food charities to rise to the occasion, be called true food banks, and be recognized by Feeding America. So not every food charity is a food bank recognized by Feeding America. Luckily, we are recognized and a true member of Feeding America. There are 199 food banks, and Feeding America has divided up the entire country so that every food bank has a geographical area for which they're responsible to serve. And so this right here is our contractual responsibility, and with it we know roughly how many pounds of food we're responsible for delivering to each one of those counties. In addition to like a strong relationship we have with Feeding America, we also have a relationship with, oh good, we're here. Maybe it'll work now. Oh, it does. Okay, great. Now everything works. Give it up for our IT in the back. All right, so these little dots here are all the Feeding America food banks across the country. Every single county in the entire country is covered or has an attached food bank that's responsible for serving it. In our state is divided up like this. And so you can see Big Bend, we're right here in the Panhandle. And collectively, all of us serve all 67 counties. We also, the CEOs of every single one of the food banks, we serve on the board of Feeding Florida. And our goal there is to make sure that when we speak to the state about things like appropriations, looking for state funding, when we're responding to natural disasters, we have a unified voice because we're all meeting regularly to talk about like what are the biggest challenges we're all facing. We also sometimes apply for big contracts together. A recent example of that was a program that is now defunded, but it was SNAP Education, and for 27 years, the SNAP Education program was totally run by IFAS within the University of Florida University. The IFAS locations did cooking demonstrations and nutrition classes, and the CEO of Feeding Florida was like, why aren't the food banks out there doing cooking demonstrations and nutrition classes? And we thought, we don't know, we would like to be doing that. So we applied as an entire collective, and we were given that award 4 years ago, and for the last 4 years, we were able to do that work. While we gave out food, we were able to show people like, how do you cook this? We're gonna write recipes and nutrition cards to start introducing people like what is nutritiously dense food that they could be cooking at home. How will this taste? We'll cook some of it for you so that you and your child can try it and give you a recipe card and then all of the ingredients for that. It was an excellent program. Unfortunately, it has been defunded this year, but something that I can say is that our staff, having kind of wandered through that and learning so much more about the importance of nutrition, it's kind of woven itself into like our fibers. It's how we want to engage. We want to make sure that education is part of the work that we do. So although the funding and the structure that once was there to support that program is no longer there, the heart and the energy that our staff just internally has around that will keep this still alive for us. So we're still going to be doing cooking classes and nutrition education and nutrition bingo at senior centers. We're still going to be out there making sure that we're serving. But that was a work of our collective, which was really powerful. Also, like I'll go back and just talk about collective work too. Feeding America is a pretty incredible convener of national companies. So, for example, Walmart and Publix have a relationship independent of the relationship they have with Second Harvest at the Big Bend. They at a national level have a relationship with Feeding America and have committed to serving serving the food banks that are in their service areas. So what that means for us is that every single Publix in our service area and every single Walmart in our service area gives us food. And it's just kind of built into the way that we operate. We still have a responsibility to make sure the relationship is good, but it is built in already, a gift for us to maintain because Feeding America brokered that at a national level. They also did a really incredible thing. Has anyone seen the Dollar General markets? They're starting to pop up. That is a product of Feeding America. So Feeding America, of course, gets feedback from food banks every single month on things that we're seeing, struggles we're having, and something that the Food Bank Network said, Feeding America. Everywhere there's a Dollar General and a Dollar Tree, there's usually not any other food option. And often what we're seeing at the Dollar Generals and Dollar Trees is a lot of shelf-stable food, but not a lot of fresh food. And Feeding America said, this is a really excellent observation. Is this happening nationwide? And all the food banks said, yes, this is happening nationwide. So they went to Dollar General and Dollar Tree and said, would either of y'all entertain a conversation about fresh food? And Dollar General said, we will. And so Dollar General said, we will pilot Dollar General markets in the state of Florida. So it actually started here with us. And they said, we're gonna try this model. And for them, it was risky because they didn't know what to do if they were gonna introduce fresh food into their inventory, because suddenly you have quicker turn dates. That food could go bad. What are they gonna do with product that didn't sell? So Feeding America said to the Food Bank Network, to the groups that are here in Florida, and said, everybody here in Florida, you are going to have to build a relationship and go pick up food with every single Dollar General in your service area. Do you know how many Dollar Generals we have up here? And we're all like, okay. But it's been really incredible because we are seeing more and more of these Dollar General markets popping up, offering for the first time in so many of these communities fresh food. It's absolutely incredible. So it's very exciting that that's happening, and it forced the food banks to get creative. So what we started to do is we created a agency empowerment program, because what we realized was that these Dollar Generals, it's great that they have fresh produce, but they don't have 40,000 pounds of fresh produce that would warrant us driving a giant truck across into Liberty County to pick it up. It's usually a small crate. So what we were able to do is play off of that hyper-local interest of a lot of the managers of those Dollar General markets. And if we were able to say, cull through all of your product, and at the end of the day, you're gonna set it aside. And you know, the Methodist church on the corner down the street, usually they're like, yeah, I go there, or I'm very familiar, that nonprofit, or this senior center. Well, those are the people that actually drive over and pick it up. So it's collected by somebody in their community, picked up by somebody in their community, and it feeds people in their community. So we were able to kind of like build that into each of our counties and each of those neighborhoods. But these relationships are just so powerful. It does great things at a local level. Okay. I think, yep, so those are our 16 counties. All right, so why is there hunger? I was hungry right before that delicious dinner. That is something physical that we all might feel. I feel very regularly. But food insecurity is, that's actually a statement about resources and the capacity for households to meet their needs. And it usually is a reflection of poverty inside of a home. So food insecurity being something that's physically felt, a discomfort, food insecurity really is a statement about lack of resources. I might use those words interchangeably, but I just thought as a point of education, I would share that. So we get lots of questions about like, what is the need? How much, like, what is the food insecurity in this community? How many people are hungry? And Second Harvest of the Big Bend, we're not big enough to have our own statisticians on staff. We're not big enough or funded in a way that would mean that we could do firsthand research and do surveys. So a lot of what we do is we look to other big organizations that crunch data. And so the first thing that we usually look at is going to be Feeding America and ask them what data do they have nationwide and then by state and by county. And so they were able to share data with us about food insecurity in our service area. And what we know is that 1 in 10 people, and I'm so sorry, something has happened in like the font is doing something funky. But anyways, there's 1 in 10 individuals in awe and 1 in 10 individuals in, good grief, hang on. In every county we serve, at least 1 in 10 individuals is experiencing food insecure, meaning they do not know where their next meal is coming from. And 1 in 10, like, that feels disturbing for me. But I also believe that this is an underreport. And that's based on anecdotal information. Like, we get phone calls at the food bank. I have a good relationship with 211, and so we hear from them regularly what portion of the calls that they get every month is people asking for food. We also have 150 nonprofit partners that are distributing food with us and sending us data back. So I feel like this number is an underrepresentation of the true need. So the next data point that we typically go to is the poverty line level. And this is also limiting for us because the poverty line is established by the federal government, is updated every year. And this year, Monique Ellsworth, household of one. I do have a dog, Tucker, 1.5. So for me, myself, I am not considered as living in poverty if my income is $15,651. I then do not participate in this slide. Or can you imagine a family of 4 living off of $32,151, not contributing to this, like the amount of financial strain those families are experiencing, and they still don't qualify federally to be named as someone living in poverty. It is the Department of Health and Human Services.
How can we get them to have it?
It's updated every year. You know how this was actually developed is back in the 60s. Is anybody in the room has done this research, like is really familiar with how this number kind of develops? Great. All right. So if I mess this up, nobody knows. But essentially, what they were looking at is they were looking at the cost to feed a family for an entire year, and this was like in 67, I think, 1967. They were like, what is the cost to feed a family? And they said it should never cost more than 25% of your annual income. To like 25% of your annual income should always go towards food. And so they times the cost of food. So this is basically, they're saying that for me to live my life, I would only need to spend on food for a whole year. And if you look at like SNAP benefits for families, like for a single individual, the average SNAP is $200 a month. And so like it doesn't account for cost of living, it doesn't account for inflation, it doesn't account for the cost of food rising that we mentioned right at the beginning of this. So it's not rooted in data points that I think really talk about what an American's experience is trying to survive in 2025. And so we know that this data it limits the way that we can understand the experience of the people that fall just $1 above this that aren't counted. And the poverty line also doesn't change based on the location. So this is, if you live in New York City or in LA or in Houston or in Tuig, you're all held to the same kind of like threshold. It does not take into account cost of living. And like most concerning is that whether and where you are on this, as your income as it relates to the poverty line dictates what federal programs you qualify for also. So to your point, advocacy around this would be incredibly helpful to so many families, because whether you qualify for a WIC, free and reduced child care, food stamps, like everything's housing programs, they all tie back to the poverty line. And it's a very flawed system. All right, so if we also can agree that for a single individual living in Leon County, maybe making $16,000 a year puts them at the need of a food bank, we could assume that this report would be a bit of an underreport. So if I'm looking for another data point to try and help me better understand what the need in our community looks like, I look at the United Way. Is anyone familiar with the Alice report? There's okay, some nods, a lot of head shaking. So I'll tell you a little bit about the United Way and real fast. The United Way is super important because there was a time when food banks, just nonprofits couldn't fundraise on their own. They didn't have staff to fundraise. And the United Way would legitimize a lot of the work that nonprofits were doing, and they could go and negotiate gifts from individuals and businesses. They could share the good work being done by the nonprofit community, go out, do presentations on the nonprofit's behalf, and then work as the pass-through to get that funding back to the nonprofits. Eventually, the business owners were asking really good questions, and one of those sounded a lot like, United Way, surely the nonprofits aren't serving people that aren't living in poverty. And on the surface, we understand what they're trying to understand. Are they serving people in need? But because poverty actually has a really defined term and guidelines with it, the United Way would say, hang on one second, business community, let me go ask the nonprofits. Nonprofits, surely you're not helping people that have income above the poverty line. And the nonprofits, all of us, again, in unison, were like, we absolutely are serving people who are above the poverty line. And United Way is like, oh, okay. Business community, it turns out they are serving people who are living outside of poverty. And so we had to do a lot of education as the nonprofit community with United Way, and then through United Way to the business community about the limitations of this data, about the needs and costs of living at various cities across the United States. And so what the United Way did, really incredible, they took their own money to do a study to try and better equip nonprofits and businesses with information about what it costs for people to live and thrive at a county level, which is really incredible. So they created an ALICE report, which is an acronym. It's Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. It's a report of people that are working multiple jobs sometimes just to make ends meet. It says it represents the growing number of families who are unable to afford the basics of housing, childcare, food, transportation, healthcare, and technology. And we felt like this might be a better information about the number of people in our community who are living paycheck to paycheck. And across the entire United Way service area, which is a little bit smaller than Second Harvest, 53% of the United Way of the Big Bend, 53% of their county service area living paycheck to paycheck. In Leon County, United Way just had their breakfast last week. United Way reported last week that in Leon County, it is now 52%. It used to be 51, but it's 52% of Leon County residents are living paycheck to paycheck. So when we drive home today, one out of every 2 front doors we drive past, there's families that are having to decide, am I gonna pay for my food or am I gonna pay my mortgage or my rent? Am I paying for my food or am I gonna fix the tire that just popped because there was a nail somewhere? Am I gonna pay for that medication that I desperately need? So that's the lived experience of 52% of Leon County, having to decide how to spend limited funding. Is that surprising?
Yes.
It's no, it's not.
I teach in
Okay, yes, some of us swim in those waters, but it's jarring nonetheless. It's very sad, very sobering numbers.
So it seems as though the cutting Medicaid influences
Oh my gosh.
the amount of food that you buy.
Oh, absolutely. And SNAP, SNAP funding. So the ALICE report tells us that in 13% of our counties, 50% or more of the population is living paycheck to paycheck. So the Big Bend region, where we are up here in the Panhandle, and we all know this. I mean, you drive any direction out of Tallahassee, and if you're driving 2.5 hours east or west, you're still in Second Harvest's food distribution kind of service area. It's extremely low income. So it gets worse. So let's talk about child food insecurity. I swear, when I put this together, everything did fit. Please trust me. So let's dive into food insecurity for a moment, just to talk about what's happening to children. Title I schools. Do you want to share anything about what you see before I dive into this?
There's a disconnect between what Leon County's centralized menu is serving and what those Title I schools, those kids want to eat.
Okay.
They want Takis. They don't care about mozzarella sticks or whatever it is. There's just a big,
It's like a cultural insensitivity
yeah,
kind of
there
there.
can be a cultural part of it too. They're into snacks. They're not into broccoli. They would rather eat the ranch with their fingers than use the carrot sticks to eat the ranch with.
And and it's interesting, when we started doing the SNAP education, and I mean, I was a child too, I love ranch dressing, I get it.
I know you do. Carrots.
But it's also introducing healthy food to families. And what is cheaper? If you go shopping, the cheaper food is going to be the sugary drinks, the chips, the highly processed food. That's going to be a cheaper option for most individuals, and that's what children are being socialized with. As they eat food, that's what they're eating more of, and that's what they're looking to, and that's what they're comfortable eating. And so anyways, I think there's lots to be said about under-resourced schools and what children are just kind of exposed to early in life. So in our service area, 25% of children are food insecure. So over 31,000 children in our 16 county service area do not know where their next meal is coming from. They're relying on free and reduced breakfast and lunch. When holidays like this past Friday happen, that means no food. Christmas break, no food. Summer, no food. So there's huge problems in our current community. Just here in Leon County, I promise this did work. And just in Leon County, 22.2% of the children just here in Leon County are food insecure, and the state average is 18.4. Children are worse in a worse position here in Leon County.
And this may be a question for someone else, but when you look at our average median income in Leon County, it's actually higher than most counties in Florida. So where's the disconnect where if we include all of our working families, the average is higher than elsewhere, but we have so much food insecurity and poverty?
That is really interesting. What's been interesting to watch the last few years is actually what's happening in not Gadsden, not Franklin, Wakulla County. Wakulla County. But what we're seeing is that Wakulla County, it's a lot of wealthy white families buying land there. And so we're seeing this disproportional swing that starts to tell a different story that isn't the accurate story for the majority of people living there. We're seeing these outliers moving in that is really pulling averages farther away simply because we're seeing a lot of wealth move into some of these more rural counties. But it's an interesting.
Remember that the median is just the middle number. It is not what we think of as the average. What we think of the average, you add it all up and you divide by the number, and that's not what the median is. So as wealthier people are moving in, the median rises, but the people at the bottom of it are not improving.
Representing, no, absolutely. So what I will talk about is some of the things that we've been doing. So as a food bank, and we can't do this without Leon County schools and school systems saying yes, in addition to educating children and being under-resourced sometimes to just do that. They are saying we also want to feed them. And any other educators in the room? Okay, several hands going up. So beyond education, there's also services that are being done for children. I teach in the College of Social Work at FSU, and every semester. Last semester I was teaching Homelessness in America. One of my kids was homeless. This semester I'm one weekend, so I don't know what's going on, but the food insecurity on campus, homelessness of students on campus, pretty extraordinary. And so we just know that youth are at a great risk, and universities and colleges and K through 12 schools are largely stepping in to figure out what ways can they support. So I want to give you kind of what's been going on the last few years. Raise your hand if you ever volunteered or donated to our program called the Backpack, our backpack program. About half the room. So our backpack program, and I saw a lot of smiles. So backpack program, absolutely incredible program. It introduced in a lot of ways for the first time a way for us to have a conversation about childhood food insecurity and giving donors, volunteers, teachers a tool to use, a way to participate in getting food back to children. We worked with Abby and her team a few years ago to do some interviews that we called it Breaking Bread. It was with Leon County. We went and we sat with people in our community in various neighborhoods to get feedback on the county was listening for certain things about infrastructure and things that the county needed to do to better meet the service needs. The Children's Services Council was there also, and SECO was listening for things related to what her program was doing. And I was sitting there listening to what was going on with food, what were they needing. And I gotta tell you, at every single one of those meetings, I listened to parents say, I love the backpack program, I love the idea of it, but my children never even show up at the end of the school day on Friday with the food. They've literally thrown it out on the sidewalks because they want to lick the ranch off the base of the bowl instead of eat the carrots. We were buying all kinds of really expensive, really nutritious food. This guy named Justin was ordering this stuff in the summertime in bulk to feed 1,500 children every Friday. And if anybody in this room has ever tried to feed a child, they're finicky. and we were giving them the same things, or it would rotate, but the kids weren't eating it. And it was the most expensive program that we operated, and what we found out, it was like the least effective. It was not actually serving what the donor was wanting, what the family needed, and what the spirit and intention of the program was. So we thankfully went to the Feeding America Network to say, what's everybody else doing? And we were hearing from all the food banks saying we were sunsetting that program, and we're inviting our community to understand what we were facing, like the reality of the program. And we are going to turn that money and that effort into school markets. And so what that looked like for us was we piloted it in a summer, right after the 2023 school year. We piloted that summer. We said, what if we just bring to schools pantries? And we allowed children to go through and actually pick out what they'll eat. And we'll allow mom and dad to also come through and pick out what they need. And instead of just sending them home with small child-size containers, we just bring the whole thing. Here's a huge bag of cereal. Here's the box of the noodles that you need. Here's an actual can of tomato paste. Here is like real size product for mom, dad, aunts, uncles, grandparents to be able to pick that food up and take it home for them. And it also allowed for dietary restrictions, allergies, religious preferences. It truly gave like dignity and choice. So what we were able to do is we opened up 5 of them that we were able to jump, and we did 10 of them over this past summer. They were open all summer long, and you can't see it, but we are actually, we have 27 that have opened this school year, 27 school pantries, schools that have said, we want to have one of these. We understand that feeding children is important. We want to be a resource beyond education for our neighborhood. So we have 28 that opened 3 weeks ago, and we have 2 more schools that have said we want to come on board, and we'll have 30 by the end of September that'll be open.
So they're on the school property?
Yes, they are inside the
Who's running
school.
those?
Every school is a little bit different. Sometimes it's the guidance counselor has it in their office. Sometimes it's the school admin has a room that wasn't being used. But we're seeing like a different model at every single school. Really interesting. Yeah.
So it's like a food bank in the school?
Food pantry. Yes, ma'am. Yep. So they can just like walk in and grab whatever they want. Yes, ma'am. Convenient.
I'm so glad you mentioned you mentioned something about the universities and students and stuff. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because a lot of folks don't know that a lot of college students do struggle with food. And so one of the things that we implemented at Florida A&M University, I'm a part of the National Alumni Association. I alluded to our board's attention that a lot of the students don't live in close range of a market, and so we decided to donate funds to our school. And so we actually have a beautiful food pantry on campus that's open every day. The first half is open to the students, and then the second half is open to the community. And they're getting fresh fruit, birthday cake, any type of thing you want, they have it in there. And but I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because it is some students do rely on the cafeteria, but when that closes, they don't have anywhere else to go, and so they have that food pantry that's open pretty much every day on campus for students to take advantage of.
And FAMU has been like an excellent partner to us in helping to get food out, because it's not, like you said, it's not just for the FAM students. This is the greater Southside community is serviced by, and at FAMU, I mean, like for y'all to be open, is it 5 days a week?
5 days a week, and then it was open over the summer. It was reduced hours, but it was still open over the summer for students. And then, like I said, students and community people as well, folks in the general community.
So to build on a question about like what all the schools look like, all of our pantries are different. So we have some pantries that are open like one Wednesday a month. And I don't, like the rest of the time they just hold the food hostage. But they serve like one Wednesday a month, or every other Friday, or by appointment only. But occasionally we find these amazing partners that are saying like every single day we are open to serve. And so it's also important for us as we find new partners that want to come on, and we set standards and we invite them and inspire them to want to serve more, so that their doors are open longer, more families have access to the services that they're providing.
Can I was in a Title I school. I never saw kids being invited to come in and say what they wanted. Now, if food went home, child would come back and say, my mama wants X, Y, or Z. But I can't tell you, and I talked with the teacher, who had a master's degree, married, fair number of children who had to use the food pantry because what she was bringing in was not to cover. And so I would help her, we'd try to go in on Friday, get food out, and take it home. So it's just not the kids. The teachers are needing to use it as well.
I appreciate you saying that. Like a lot of the distributions that we'll do are, schools are so set up for us to do the drive-through distributions that y'all are probably really familiar seeing on the news with us. And at the beginning of it, somebody always from the school or head of facilities is coming up saying, I've got 15 people here that work here that need this kind of help. Could we set those boxes aside? Or we do our huge Thanksgiving and Christmas distributions out at the mall, and the mall staff members that will come out and say, hey, we're really needing some people that work in here to get some support. And same thing, the number of women coming through in scrubs. I mean, like when I have to think of the uniform for our lines, scrubs. We've got a lot of nurse assistants that are coming through here looking for support also. All right, so the school market is one way that we're helping people. That just started 3 weeks ago. So what were we doing all summer? So this is like really exciting. So 2 summers ago, let's go back to COVID. During COVID, we were entering summer, and the way that the summer feeding programs, which is managed by the Department of Agriculture, and we're just lucky enough to be what's called a sponsor to administer that to the local community. Department of Ag said the way this program has to be administered is you bring the food to a location, we have to approve the address, we have to approve the time. We'll even come and show up and make sure that you're giving out the correct food at the correct time, the correct location. And you have to watch the child eat the food. They got to finish by that time ending, and then we gather it back up and then we have to leave. Then we go to the next location and we got to watch the children eat the food. And it was because they were worried the parents would eat. And the intention of the program was to feed children, and so like the food police, we're having to sit there and make sure that only the child is eating the food. So 2 summers ago, so back to COVID. So during COVID, we're like, it feels like us hanging out together is kind of killing people. So maybe we aren't gonna do the congregate feeding. And they were like, yeah, let's not do that. Go ahead and just give the kids the food and drive on. So during COVID, 2 summers, give the food, drive on. Post-COVID, back to watching children eat. And they did this, they did a study, as they do, and they looked at everything that Big Bend had done, and they were like, Second Harvest, we love what you guys are doing in Leon County. Seems like you're really feeding those children. It looks great. What's going on with these rural counties? We know there's kids, and you're not serving as many of those. What's happening? And it's like, well, for us to get to Liberty County, we got to drive all the way over there on Monday, watch the children eat, and we got to pack up and leave and go back, and then try and get back out there on Tuesday and watch the kids eat. And we're just going to one location, and we're like, we cannot. We don't have the capacity, the bandwidth. It is not set up to allow us to feed children. And they're like, what would you recommend? We're like, just let us feed the kids. Let us come by on a Monday and give all the food to that family that they're going to need for an entire week. And let's just trust that, what's the worst thing they're going to do? Someone's going to eat the food. That's what we want. And they were like, okay, well, let's try it. So they gave us a waiver for our rural counties. And we went from 2 summers ago, we did 17,000 meals. It was our biggest summer, 17,000 meals in 9 weeks. It was pretty huge. The summer that they gave us the waiver, we did 35,000 meals. That was summer before last. And they were like, wow, that really worked. And we're like, imagine, take away the barriers and people can eat. So this past summer, we fed over 10,000 children, and we served 67,000 and some odd meals. 67,000, just shy of 7,000 meals. That's over 9 weeks. And And that's not just Second Harvest. Like, we have, again, amazing groups that open their doors, they do the inspections, they collect the data, they feed it back to us. And so it's this partnership that is happening, and it's been beautiful to watch that take place. So we had some pretty incredible wins this past summer. And we're good at our reporting. We have a really strong relationship with the Department of Agriculture. So our hope is that we will see this waiver next summer again and be able to feed more children. Something that we're trying to do right now is a program called After School Meal. And it's actually managed through the Department of Health rather than the Department of Agriculture. And so we're in our application phase with them. It takes 6 months. You could almost have a child. 6 months for us to get through the application process with the Department of Health, but we're hoping to onboard and do more after-school meal programs so that we can participate in work being done at the local community centers here in town to feed children. So that is currently in the works. So where does our food come from? Can I get a time check? How am I doing? I'm yappy. I'm fine? All right. 7:02. What time do I have to end? 7:15. Just start throwing stuff at me and I'll leave. Okay, we have a staff who looks online for food purchase opportunities. We order in a lot of cases like the same way that Walmart or Publix is, either directly from farmers or from big distribution companies, and we order by the truckload. So it's wonderful for us because we have the ability to order 40,000 pounds of food at a time. And that means that the cost of each item is driven really far down simply because we're able to buy in such bulk. But we also do a commodity switch around the state. So there's some food that is grown in North Florida in abundance. Examples of that would be satsumas. We get lots and lots of donated satsumas. I know that like 2 years ago, the freeze last year really hurt everybody. We did not see, I don't know if anybody, my neighbor's tree falls into my yard, so I feel like it's my tree too. And we didn't have any satsumas last year. But the year before that, Satsuma City. I mean, we had so many satsumas and they were being donated to us. And so we'd get donors saying, we'd like to give you a truckload of satsumas. And we're like, thank you so much. That's 40,000 pounds of satsuma. But we're gonna figure out what to do. And then like the next day, a different grower's like, we just love y'all and we wanna give you a truckload of satsumas. Oh my, another truckload of satsumas. So we start looking at the other food banks in the state, and they are getting overwhelmed with the type of food that they typically get. And so we just move commodities across the state so that they are getting the greens and the tomatoes and the satsumas from up here, and we're getting the melons and the cabbage that we see so much down in South Florida. So we're able to like move that product across the state so that our neighbors get a beautiful variety of food also. I'll also just like a quick plug for Publix. Publix, incredible partner, really expensive, but an incredible partner. They, every single Tuesday, they order a duplicate truck, the truck that's bringing food in to Leon County to fill up everything here. The exact same product, the exact same grade, meaning grade A, the same beautiful stuff that we all walk in and look at in Publix. They order a second truckload at no cost and give it to us every single Tuesday. Wow. Absolutely incredible. Also, like another really cool thing that Publix did is, so I'm a vegetarian, but I gotta say every time I walk into Publix, I'm like, I don't know, today might be the day we eat that chicken. And so that breaded chicken, absolutely amazing, but at the end of the day, they have to throw it away. And it's because the breading of it has been determined to be able to absorb so much water that it's ideal for bacteria growth, and they can't risk it, so they're gonna throw it out. So the current CEO of Publix got with UF and University of Georgia for them to collaborate on a new recipe that absorbs less water so that they could safely freeze and give away their chicken at the end of the day. And so they've spent they've spent that much money creating a new recipe, trying it out, and it works. My nose could tell the difference. It smells great still. And what they did when Wilton Simpson came to office, and he's the head of the Department of Agriculture, their first order of business was getting with Wilton Simpson to say, we want to be able to give this product away. like Publix, like their willingness to kind of like give and advocate so they can give some more has been really incredible to watch. They've been a wonderful partner to us. So we look for opportunity purchases. We find really amazing retail partners we love. We buy from local farms. We found that we have, we're in like the Swanee Valley, we're in some of the richest soil of our entire state, and so the opportunity to buy local is enormous. When I got to the food bank, again, vegetarian, I saw all this fresh food coming in and I was like, this is wonderful. We're giving all this to people, like they get all this variety. And my team at the time said, well, really the reason why they're getting all this food is because this was during Trump's first administration, and so there was trade mitigation happening where we weren't selling anything to China. And it was specifically like all the growers in the country were like, well, I already have like the contract and I planted everything and I've tilled the fields and I've planted everything and I have no one to sell it to. USDA went through and purchased all of that food to make sure that our growers in our country didn't fail because of that decision. USDA bought it and then pushed it all down through the charitable organizations like food banks. So we were seeing this like beautiful moment in time where all this fresh food was coming in. And I was like, that's heartbreaking that we only have one revenue kind of like for this. And the second trade mitigation is gone, our neighbors won't have access to this fresh food. So we set a goal back in 2019 that by 2025, and we've reached it, 50% of all the food that we give out to the community is fresh. And we were able to do that by building relationships with our local farmers and being able to advocate and fundraise and write for grants and go to the state appropriations and say, we want to use local dollars to buy from local companies to feed the local kids. And that's really resonated and allowed us to like have really healthy food available. So some fun initiatives that we're really focused on so far this year, our Food is Medicine program is something that has been bubbling up. So we're actively working with TMH, Bond, and Neighborhood to make sure that as those providers are learning about food insecurity that their partners or their patients might be facing, rather than just saying like, oh wow, I'm so sorry that that's how you're struggling, we can actually connect them with a pantry that's on site at those clinic locations, which is really exciting. We're also doing a lot of rural outreach. So this is an example of a truck that actually Publix paid for. It was built specifically for this. Families walk in on this side and walk down a single aisle and then exit on the other side. True shopping experience. And we're able to drive this into really rural communities where there aren't any food options for those families. Increase to access to fresh produce has been a real focus of ours, but as we do that, we need refrigeration. So then we had to look at network capacity and find grants and funds so that we can buy refrigerators and freezers and more shelving for the partner agencies so that the product that we're sourcing and bringing in, they could actually accept. We also created, wrote a grant for, and we were awarded by a number of groups, funding to actually put in these beautiful food lockers. Has anybody seen these? A lot of hundred, okay. So really excited that we were able to open up our most recent one, was at Neighborhood Medical Center on the south side, and we just had the ribbon cutting there last month. Very exciting that we now have something like this on the south side of Tallahassee. And then we're also doing a lot of construction. So this is actually the facility. If you've not been here, and if you have been here, you might not have known that we own 12.17 acres out there. And what we've been doing is working on a plan to actually expand the building. And so we're actually going to build an expansion right here in the back. So this was right before construction started, and this is what it looks like throughout the year and what it looked like last week. They did the flyover, so you can actually see the pad. Right here at 2 in the morning, they're actually going to be pouring the concrete, and so that we're going to get the whole foundation built. And this is what the front, currently what we think it's going to look like right now. So we'll have a whole new facility, and what that will allow us to do is anybody that's volunteering right now, you're volunteering inside of a cooler. So we're going to be able to move you into an actual room and put food in that cooler. This is currently the volunteer area inside that cooler. So we're going to be able to fill this with actual food. This is our current administrative area, and what we're going to be doing is turning one side of it into workforce development. So we're actually going to do training on site, and the other side of it, we're going to be building a production kitchen so that we can cook food on site, seal it, and flash freeze it, and be able to serve fresh food to our families here locally, right here on site with like employees from this community. So we're really excited to see kind of everything that that's going to allow us to do. And it's going to allow us to have like more space inside of our buildings so that we can do more preparation for disaster response and have more, definitely more square footage and more storage so that we can have more food on site at the food bank. I think that that brings us to the end. Any questions? I can try this, yeah.
What's your biggest unmet need right now?
Biggest unmet need. I can tell you what I'm losing sleep over right now. What I'm losing sleep over right now is changes at a federal level and what that means for us locally. When that SNAP education funding went away, it touched 11 staff members' positions. And that could have meant that if we just reduced and figured out how many full-time people we'd need to let go, I was going to have to terminate 4 people. And that was going to be really hard because we have a really small staff and we do it's lean. I mean, like, you know, it's just like, well, which arm are we cutting off, the right or the left? I mean, that's kind of where we're at. But thankfully, I met with that staff and I just said, like, you're seeing it on the news with me. We're interpreting what the big, beautiful bill means for us here locally. We don't know what those losses are going to look like, but it doesn't sound good. And I did just be really transparent. I said, you know, as your friend, you need to start looking for jobs. Because I know you care about the food bank, would you give me 6 weeks? And this was happening in mid-July. And I said, I'll be transparent with you. And if you'll give me until the end of August, I'll give you a 4-week runway because we know the program ends in October when it's over. And I said, I can give you a 4-week runway and I'll pay you for a month beyond that if you'll just give me until August, the end of August, to figure out what to do. And we applied like crazy for grants. We looked at what flexible dollars we had. We called current funders to ask what we could do to move things around. Everyone worked with us, and we were able to meet with our staff 3 weeks ago and said we don't have to lose anybody. We're able to keep everybody on staff. What's really interesting is, I guess the federal government or the state government works in like a month behind or a year behind, so they actually have funding on hand to run this program for an entire year, unless the federal government wants to do a clawback and take all those dollars back. USDA has said we're not going to claw it back. So that means the Department of Agriculture, if they sign something, we could keep SNAP education going for another year. But FDACS has already fired all of their staff statewide. All those staff members are gone. And I met with like our board, not Second Harvest board, but the Feeding Florida board met on Friday, and most of the other food banks in the state, they have terminated their staff too. Luckily, we just didn't do that. So I don't even know how we're going to spin that program back up. And also I just had to find all these other dollars and all these other grants with their own deliverables. So now if Department of Agriculture says, okay, just kidding, y'all can do it. Like, now everybody's time is already committed to other things. We have all these other responsibilities. So right now I think it's, we're riding a bull. Like, we are riding a bull, and we're trying to ride these waves and keep our mission in the focus and know that no matter what's happening at a federal level or at a state level, there's children that need to be fed. There are parents that need support. There are seniors that need their next meal. And so we just stay really, really focused on that. But it is like, there are moments of like panic because as much as I say that, we still need staff. I still need trucks. I still have to insure everything. We've got to buy our food. So I guess right now, certainty. What I'm lacking right now most is certainty about a lot of things that at one point felt really stable. But I have so much hope. I did not want it to end like that. There's so much hope. Like, our community is so beautiful. What we do together, I have to say, when I left Second Harvest, when I left the Kearney Center and CESC, that is a demanding job. And I thought to myself, oh, it's okay. So what I realized was, I joked that Second Harvest of the Big Bend was going to be like my retirement job. I was like, what's the worst thing that happens at a food bank? Like a food fight? A pandemic happens. And so there was, I got a front row seat to like some really incredible pain in our community, but also to just like the deepest love and commitment to one another. And luckily I work in a field where there's nobody that doesn't want to help kids. And so like I have immense hope. I see our donations going up. I see the number of volunteers coming in going up. I see invitations to speak at things like this increasing. The rooms are full, people care, and we're just blessed to live in such an amazing community where like folks look at one another and want to figure out how to heal the world together. And we're just really, really blessed. So at a local level, I feel so encouraged, and I just keep my focus where I find encouragement, and that's with y'all. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you do for each other, for Second Harvest. Y'all are what give Tallahassee like the life that we all need. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Could I ask another question?
Yeah.
Monique, could you talk a little bit about various kinds of donations that you get and how getting 2 cans of green beans compares with getting $2?
Ah, yes. So donor intention, we want to honor every way that people want to participate. And I actually want to talk about Lori Messer. No, she's saying no. But has anyone in here heard of A Full Summer?
Yeah.
All right, so A Full Summer is Lori. And a conversation that Lori and I had, and I didn't know Lori, I now know her and we love each other very deeply, but a conversation that she and I had like my first month in was her saying, you know, I'm Lori Messer, we do this thing called A Full Summer, and we like pour food into these bags and we seal these bags up and then we give it to families and they can take it home and they can cook it. And what I had heard from other food banks and from my own staff was that it wasn't uncommon for products like that, not just A Full Summer, but there's other groups that do product like that. That stuff just gets returned. Like it gets donated back. Like the families get it and then they're bringing it back in. And so I went to Lori, and again, like this is scary. Like you're going to a donor and backpack programs is the same kind of thing. But I went to Lori and I said, tell me what your donors are needing. Like what is the experience they're wanting to have? Because I think that we can meet that need and still serve kids. And so what we came up with was what it currently looks like today, where we're making these amazing snack packs. How many do we do? 9,000 in like 90 minutes, something wild like that. And with everybody gets a handwritten letter from an adult telling the child how important they are. It's an absolutely amazing program. But the donor was willing to hear what maybe needed to change a little bit for the mission to still be met, the way that the donor wanted to be engaged to still be engaged. And so that was really, really helpful. Your point more specifically, what we find is that sometimes people are doing like canned food drives. And I know that they're going to like Publix's and Walmart's and they're buying food off the shelves and they're buying 1s and 2s, or maybe they're seeing some BOGOs, and that's exciting. But I promise you, like for every $1 donated, it's the equivalent of 4 meals through Second Harvest because of our purchasing power. And so sometimes we find people and they're like, I took $100 and I ran to Walmart, ran to Publix, and I bought all this stuff. And I love that. I love that, especially if that's how that donor needs to feel that connection. Sometimes it's holding something and knowing that's going to be given to someone, that means something. And if that's what you want to feel, I don't want to discourage anybody from that. But if the goal is to feed as many people as possible, donating dollars to the food bank will achieve that better than any BOGO that you find at a Publix, I promise you.
Well, along that line, we have a kind of a food drive at our church, and so I guess the better thing to do is to give money. But do they give money to you, or do they give money to the food bank, which is Good News Outreach?
Oh, yeah, so like Good News Outreach, absolutely incredible partner agency. And Talithia Edwards, their CEO, she might have a preference on whether or not, because what it could be is it could be earmarked for.
I think they give money from you for free. Do they have to buy it from you?
There's a variety of things. She could Talithia could either order, some of our food is absolutely free. We just deliver it, there's no cost. Some of it is what we call shared maintenance, and it's 19 cents a pound. Whatever you're buying, it's just 19 cents. And then what we did is we asked the 150 agencies, because what we found out was that like a lot of our partners were still driving to Costco, still driving to Walmart, buying a lot of food. And we're like, folks, what are you guys buying? Because again, we can buy it cheaper if we buy a whole bunch of it for everybody. And then y'all can just buy it through us at a lower rate. So there's 3 ways they can either purchase the stuff that they would otherwise get at Walmart. They can do 19 cents a pound, and then some of our stuff is no cost whatsoever.
They can't use money to get food.
Yep, and we could, like, if it was given to us earmarked for Good News, we could earmark it for Good News, and they could just draw it down on it. Or you could give it directly to Good News. And Good News might say, I don't want to mess with having to go shopping, bring me cans. You know, that might be Talevia's preference. But I've got 2.5 million pounds of food sitting in my warehouse. We just move so much differently than Talevia does. Yeah.
I hate to be stupid, but what does SNAP stand for?
Oh, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And that's not a stupid question
It's
at
the
all.
new name for food stamps.
Yeah, like food stamps.
Oh, okay.
Food stamps. Yeah, I'm sorry, food stamps. Anything else? Okay, again, thank you all so much for letting me spend my evening with you.
Thank you so much. You gave us a lot to think about. Next week, we're going to have someone from Elder Care Services talking about hunger among seniors. So I hope you'll be back for that. I also wanted to mention that we've had to make one scheduling change. So Capital Area Justice Ministry was scheduled for October 8th. That person will now speak on September 24th. And Maisha Mitchell, who is scheduled for September 24th, will speak on October 8th. All right, so thank you. Thank you very much.